Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we take, well, a whole stack of sources, pull out the really key bits, and give you that shortcut to, being properly informed. Today, we're jumping into a really fascinating thought experiment, a big what if that kind of reshapes everything we think we know about civilization. We're going deep into these excerpts from The Parallel Universe, Worlds Without Coffee and Wings, and specifically that chapter called The World Without Coffee. So, our mission today, basically to unpack how the simple lack of coffee, that drink you might even be holding right now, could just fundamentally change things. Everything from like intellectual debates all the way to how people date. It's going to be surprising, I think. Might make you see your morning cup a bit differently. Or, well, what could have been. Okay, so let's unpack this. It all starts way back, 9th century Ethiopia. Now, in our world, the story goes, right? Ethiopian goats. They ate these weird red berries.
Right, the Kaldi legend.
Exactly. And the herder, Kaldi, he notices they get super energetic, almost manic, and that leads him to try them, and boom, coffee is discovered. But in this alternate world, the one the source describes, that just doesn't happen.
Nothing. The goats maybe ate them, maybe not, but nobody connects the dots.
Yeah, that key moment. It's just missed. The berries stay unknown. Their power totally untapped.
And what's really fascinating, I think, is how that one tiny non-event, just missing the coffee discovery, becomes this huge ripple effect. It's not just, oh, we don't have lattes. It's like this silent trigger that cascades outwards. It creates these profound, massive societal shifts everywhere.
It really does.
That single point, that non-discovery, it just sets the stage for everything else that's different in this world. It shows how one little thing missing can rewrite history.
And the first big impact the source points to, it's intellectual life. It's completely stark. Think about our world, London, Paris, Vienna.
The coffee houses there.
Oh, absolutely central.
They were the engines of the Enlightenment, right? Filled with debate, new ideas flying around.
Caffeine-fueled, intense discussions.
Yeah.
Totally. But without those places, without that buzz, the Enlightenment in this other world develops, and the source says completely differently. I mean, can you even picture our history without those hubs?
It's really hard, isn't it? And if you connect the dots, the source explains what kind of fills that gap. It wasn't nothing, obviously. Instead of coffee houses, you get these elaborate tea ceremonies. And tranquil herbal gardens become the spots for intellectual exchange.
Tea ceremonies and gardens?
That
is calmer.
Exactly. It's not just the drink, it's the whole vibe. The pace changes. Discussions flow, apparently, at a gentler pace. It reflects a totally different cultural rhythm.
Slower debates.
Yeah, think about how that might change philosophy or science. Maybe less rapid-fire breakthroughs, but perhaps more deep, considered thought. Slower incubation of ideas.
A gentler pace. Okay, I can sort of see that for philosophy, maybe. But what about, like, the modern world? Finance, high-pressure stuff?
Right, how does that work? And the source actually addresses this directly. It's quite striking. That gentler pace, it filters right down into daily life, like the financial markets.
Yeah.
They open at 11 a.m., not 9.3 like ours.
Wow. Just because there's no morning caffeine kick?
That's the direct link the source makes. No quick jolt to get global trading floors buzzing.
Yeah.
And it's broader than just the markets opening. People naturally wake up later. They follow more organic rhythms, as the source puts it.
More organic rhythms.
Yeah, the whole idea of a 247 society just wouldn't really exist. Imagine cities where things just start later. Shops open later, transport starts later, evenings wind down sooner.
So nobody's like desperately needing that first cup just to function in the morning rush. Sounds nice, actually. But wait, what about things like night shifts?
Yeah.
Or pulling an all-nighter for exams or work? Those rely so heavily on caffeine for us.
Yeah, exactly. And the source is very clear on this. Night shifts.
Yeah.
Barely a thing. And that phrase, pulling an all-nighter, it literally has no meaning in this reality.
No meaning, seriously.
Seriously. The logic is, if you never had artificial energy booths readily available, society just wouldn't have developed structures that required them. Society would have simply adapted to natural sleep cycles, which is, a huge departure from how we fight our own biology all the time.
I really do fight it, don't we?
Constantly. So imagine a society built around our natural sleep patterns, not against them. Think about health, stress, maybe even family life. It's a completely different way of organizing things.
That makes you think. The cost of our 24/7 cycle.
Okay,
so the pace is slower, more in tune with natural rhythms. What about really demanding mental work, like academia? Does it touch on that?
It does, yeah. And this is another really interesting detail. Universities in this coffeeless world, their philosophy departments are significantly smaller.
Smaller philosophy departments. Why?
Well, the implication in the source material is pretty provocative. It suggests that deep existential thinking would require serious chemical support that simply doesn't exist there.
Whoa, so like caffeine actually helps us think deep thoughts, or at least the kind of deep thoughts we value.
It's less about intelligence, maybe, and more about intensity. Or maybe the sustained, agitated focus caffeine can provide. Perhaps it pushes the mind into certain abstract loops or connections that are just harder to reach or sustain without that kind of stimulant. It really suggests our tools shape our thoughts, you know?
That is profound. Okay, so if they're not chugging coffee for focus, what do? People still need to concentrate, right? This is where I got really curious.
Exactly. The need for focus doesn't vanish. So because they never had the external option, this parallel world apparently had to develop internal methods. The source calls it natural alertness meditation.
Natural alertness meditation, what's that?
Instead of the working coffee run, picture this. Workers spend 15 minutes right at their desks doing structured breathing exercises.
15 minutes of breathing instead of an espresso. The whole office.
That's the picture painted. It's a massive cultural difference, obviously.
But does it work? Like really, can breathing replace caffeine?
Well, according to the source, yes. And here's the really interesting part. The reasoning is, well, if you never had the crutch of external stimulants, humans would have been forced to develop internal methods for energy and focus. It's necessity being the mother of invention, sort of.
Okay, makes sense. And the outcome.
The outcome is fascinating. Productivity, the source claims, is actually higher.
Higher, really?
Yeah, but with a caveat. It's not about speed. It's about sustained, high-quality work.
Yeah.
Fewer errors, more focus. However, the flip side is that innovation happens at a much slower, more deliberate pace.
Ah, okay. So there's a trade-off.
A fundamental one. We get speed, maybe that frenetic spark of creativity with caffeine. They get perhaps a deeper, more sustainable, less error-prone kind of focus, different kind of efficiency, valuing thoroughness, maybe over sheer velocity.
Slower innovation, but higher quality output. That's a really interesting balance. And it seems like this slower, calmer vibe extends even to relationships. Dating.
It does. The source talks about dating culture being transformed. That classic first date question, meet for coffee.
Yeah, doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. It's replaced by things like contemplative walks, or even these elaborate morning tea rituals.
Contemplative walks and tea rituals. Definitely a different mood than grabbing a quick latte. More
Intentional.
intentional, slower paced, yeah. And apparently this has emotional consequences too. Breakups, they're described as being apparently more amicable.
More amicable breakups. How does no coffee lead to that?
The connection the source makes is the lack of caffeine withdrawal complicating emotional discussions.
So no jitteriness, no headaches, no added irritability when you're already stressed.
Precisely. It's not just the headache, it's that whole physiological stress load. Without that extra layer of stimulant withdrawal messing with your mood and patience, people seem to handle difficult relationship stuff with greater calm.
Huh. That's subtle. But it makes a certain kind of sense. You're dealing with the emotion itself, not the emotion plus withdrawal symptoms. Exactly.
Yeah.
It raises that interesting question, doesn't it? How much of our own emotional intensity, good or bad, is just of us? And how much is maybe amplified or distorted by the chemicals we rely on? This suggests a more measured emotional landscape, less prone to volatile reactions.
It really makes you think about the hidden currents in our own lives. Okay, and one last area of literature, art. How does that change?
Well, think about the stereotype, right? The writer, fueled by pot after pot of coffee, frantically typing away.
Yeah, totally.
If that never happened, if writers didn't have massive coffee consumption, the source suggests literature itself would be more mellow and reflective.
Mellow and reflective.
Yeah, those intense, passionate, maybe even neurotic novels we know, the ones driven by that sharp wit and almost frantic energy, the source says they would never have existed.
So a whole genre or style just gone or different.
Fundamentally different, it implies. Maybe you lose that raw, jagged edge, that capturing of intense human moments. But perhaps you gain a different kind of depth, a more contemplative style. The whole aesthetic of storytelling reflects the society's calmer nervous system, essentially, shaped by the absence of a being.
Wow. Okay, so let's just sort of pull this all together. We've talked about massive shifts, intellectual life, the pace of science, daily work schedules, how markets run, how people date and break up, even the very feel of literature and art. And it all traces back to that one single non-event, the coffee bean just wasn't discovered and utilized. It's kind of mind-blowing how one thing can ripple out like that.
It really is. And I think this raises a really important question, maybe for you listening right now. What does this whole alternate reality exercise tell us about our world? About our own, deep reliance on stimulants like caffeine? How much of our speed, our focus methods, our way of connecting, how much is shaped by that constant presence? It really pushes us to look at things we just take for granted.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us on this very stimulating deep dive into a world without coffee. It definitely leaves you with a lot to chew on. Maybe ask yourself, what internal ways to get focused or energized might we be overlooking in our own very caffeine-heavy world? And could a slower pace, maybe one that's more in sync with our natural state, actually lead to something deeper, a better understanding of ourselves or connections? It's worth pondering maybe the hidden trade-offs in our daily routines and what we depend on, and just how easily different choices or different accidents of history could create vastly different ways to be human. Until next time, keep exploring.